Hello, I'm a Sonoran Desert Grower. I want to talk about this article that I found. I haven't read it yet. I found it earlier today and I sent it to myself. It is entitled America's Green Revolution is Failing African Farmers by Francesca de Gasparis and Fletcher Harper, opinion contributors 6/2/22. I don't think this video has anything to do with the article. In March, Southern African Faith Communities Environment Institute, SAFCEI, sent letters to the U.S. Agency for International Development, USAID, and other donors calling on them to stop funding the Alliance for a Green Revolution in Africa, AGRA. Evidence from a donor-commissioned evaluation released in February confirmed the findings of an independent academic assessment that the billion-dollar program was failing to significantly improve yields, incomes, or food security for Africa's small-scale farming households. Unfortunately, US aid was quick to dismiss the evaluation's findings, and its support for funding AGRA continued. That is why one of us was among the African civil society leaders who, in March, briefed members of the House Foreign Affairs Committee and asked them to stop the appropriation of any further funds for the alliance when Congress reauthorizes the Global Food Security Act later this year. Representatives Ilhan Omar, Sarah Jacobs, and Tom Malinowski have sent a Dear Colleague letter to the co-chairs of the House Appropriations Committee, asking them to examine the funding for the Alliance for a Green Revolution in Africa. We thank those members for taking our concerns to heart. As a multi-faith environmental NGO, so this is written by this NGO, and I forget their names, go back out here. Southern African Faith Communities Environment Institute works regionally with faith leaders concerned about environmental and climate issues. Those faith leaders represent their communities across Africa, and they see what is happening on the ground. For years, African smallholder farmers have been the supposed beneficiaries of top-down initiatives such as AGRA, which promote the use of commercial seeds and fertilizers and changes in government policies that recent studies show are harming poor farmers and the environment. So instead of using your traditional heirloom seeds, heirloom varieties that are already adapted to your local conditions, they are coming in with these seeds from who knows where, who knows what climates they do best at and whatever, and obviously synthetic fertilizers. And these are small scale farmers, so they're probably already using organic methods, and they're probably just adding salt to their soil. Farmers lose control over their seeds and become dependent on expensive inputs. The diversity of their crops and their families' diets decline with the promotion of monocultural cropping and subsidized commercial seeds. Their soils become depleted. Yes. Meanwhile, the seed and fertilizer companies are the true beneficiaries, turning public subsidies and support into private profits for major seed and fertilizer companies. So at the end of the day, this is just big agriculture making money. We wrote recently to agri donors about this issue, following an open letter sent last May to the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, AGRA's largest funder. Signed by more than 500 African faith leaders and organizations, the letter cites the growing evidence that this model of agriculture is not serving the people of Africa, nor creating a climate resilient future for small-scale farmers. We received no acknowledgement or reply from the Gates Foundation, nor most of the other donors to date. I mean, yeah, this is like drama for them. Like on one level, they have to know they're not going to get any response because you're dealing with big business, big ag. As I recall, there's $1 billion wrapped up into this program. So that's a lot of people's pockets that are being lined for profits when it comes to seeds and fertilizer. A recent evaluation confirmed poor outcomes for farmers who are recipients of Agra's approach, concluding that Agra did not meet its headline goal of increased incomes and food security for 9 million smallholders. In fact, an assessment by Tufts University researcher who works with us at the Institute for Agriculture and Trade Policy to raise awareness about this issue found that the number of undernourished people in Agra's focus countries increased 30% since the initiative began in 2006. So let's just think about that for a second. You switch up the program and you move traditional farmers away from their traditional crops and you have them farm in a way that they're not used to farming and using synthetic fertilizers, which are just going to add salts to their soil. how how in the heck are you going to get increased yields with that system? What people don't understand is that Western farming is really just synthetic farming, and it's only going to really work if you have the machinery and the water. And in rural areas, organic farming is king. I mean, it really is. Okay. In rural areas with not a lot of resources, organic is always going to win. In Africa, women farmers form the backbone of farming, often creating and providing nutritional diversity for their families and communities from small holdings or backyard farming. However, as the donor evaluation pointed out, farmers who adopted improved inputs and experienced yield increases were typically younger, male, and relatively wealthier. Productivity and income gains were also concentrated among these relatively high resource farmers. This finding directly contradicts the stated goals of US aid and of USAID and other AGRA donors to ensure that their assistance programs benefit small-scale farmers and empower women. That is why we are dismayed to read that USAID spokesperson quickly responded to the critical evaluation and pledged continued support for AGRA, stating, "We appreciate AGRA's response to the report conclusions and concur with their proposed next steps to improve performance outcomes." Because there's money in it. Faith leaders ask USAID to pause, listen to farmers, reconsider that position, stop funding AGRA and other green revolution approaches. We ask that instead USAID shift support to locally defined holistic approaches that enable agroecological transitions to sustainable food systems in Africa. Such farming methods work with rather than against biodiversity and promote the equitable production and local marketing of nutritious food. As people of faith, we believe in working to support those most vulnerable to food insecurity and climate change. We welcome support that is appropriate and provides resources that will make hunger and poverty issues of the past. We also hope that members of Congress will, when it comes time to reauthorize funding for AGRA later this year, consider our view and that of the many communities that the faith leaders represent. So this is the people who wrote it. Francesca de Gaspares is the executive director of the Southern African Faith Communities Environment Institute. Reverend Fletcher Harper is executive director of Green Faith, a grassroots international multi-faith climate justice organization. He is based in New York City. All right, so I found this to be very interesting. I haven't read it. This is the first time I'm reading the whole article. I find this interesting because I've been covering the topic of what is a food forest? What does it look like? Especially here in Arizona, where it is not realistic to plant figs and pomegranates and mangoes and have them take hold and establish themselves because we don't have the rainwater. We don't have the water resources for that. So it really forces us to work with the local native edible plants and have that be the foundation of our food forest. Then the vegetable gardens and the fruit trees become supplemental to that foundation. So that's how it would work here. Now, when it comes to the seeds that we're going to grow in our vegetable garden, we really need to focus on drought tolerant varieties. So the same dynamics are at play in many areas of Africa where they too are dry lands, where they too have a lack of water or limited rainwater resources, or even limited groundwater resources. Water is life. You need water to grow plants. Most indigenous practices that are based in a certain place build soil, harvest rainwater. They have a cachet of plants that are adapted to their region, to their conditions. And this is like a no-brainer. You can't go in there and give them commercial varieties and have them try to mimic Western agriculture in areas where that's not what's being practiced, right? So I see a lot of similarities between the the disconnect that occurs from people on the ground and folks in power. For example, these international organizations, these international um, aid organizations, USAID and AGRA, and there's also, you know, the the business of it with the Bill Gates Foundation and the role that philanthropy plays in the mismanagement of foreign aid. Why are they not listening to the farmers on the ground and to their actual needs? Why is it that they are forced to accept aid that is going to deplete their soil, is going to give them seeds that are not going to perform in their environment, and forcing them to farm in a way that's going to decrease their yields? These folks know how to farm already, right? And what they really need is infrastructure, right? So, like wells, and it's just so sad because like there's $1 billion wrapped up into doing the wrong thing. And it's not surprising, and because it's big business, is big agriculture at work, right? So nothing is going to change. I don't have any faith that Congress is going to like all of a sudden do the right thing when all these seed companies and all these fertilizer companies are probably lining their pockets, you know, with lobbying. And lobbying is just a legalized form of bribery. So I foresee this going through and the farmers of Africa not being listened to. Yeah, and this is where permaculture really I think shines, because permaculture has the answers to all the problems that these farmers are talking about. They can plant their rain and do their water harvesting and work with the native edible plants and with their traditional seeds and their traditional foods, and farm that in a biodiverse way that mimics nature, that is low input, high output. And have all of the diversity, have a nutritionally dense diet, and also if a crop fails here, you have so many crops going that it's going to offset each other. But the problem with a lot of Western minds is that they have a hard time thinking of farming as non in a non-monoculture way. So when we start talking about having a variety of edible tree products like nuts, fruit trees, and folks just want to do like one field or acres of pecans, right? Instead of having this food forest approach to it, right? It becomes a lot harder for the folks in the suits to wrap their heads around that concept. But that's not the case for people on the ground. I'm sure if I were able to um, have conversations with these farmers, we can develop ways that they can produce a lot of food using permaculture principles and ideas, right? And a lot of times, permaculture is just they already have the answers. They already have the answers, and it's just a matter of um, maybe doing some rainwater harvesting and getting infrastructure in place, like making compost and a soil building program. To me, when I was reading this article, the need that these farmers have is how to maintain soil fertility and how to produce more with the resources they have. And the only way you're going to get that in rural communities like this is to make some amazing compost and have an amazing soil program going. And it's totally possible. It's just that no one is going to go in there and do that because it's not a lucrative business. If you're teaching farmers how to make compost and how to be self-sufficient, you're not really going to be able to sell them anything. You're not really going to be able to get countries to give your business money to do international aid, or you're not going to get the philanthropic industrial complex behind you, like the Melinda Gates Foundation. So it's a business. It's a philanthropy in a way. It's a business. People are making money off of philanthropy, and this is how it is playing out in Africa. So I just wanted to share this article and just kind of talk about how permaculture fits into this. And um, this is a recent article. These are recent things that are going on in the world. And I don't want to shy away from the news that's related to agriculture. I think these topics are important to get into, and it's important to kind of see what's going on in the world and stay on top of it. To me, this is like news I can use. Like this is it's good to know what's going on, and that there's people trying to work to make sense of the world. They're trying. There's over 500 African faith leaders and organizations that have signed on to this initiative to let's make this international agricultural aid funding actually work and have real results, right? Because right now they're not having good results. And I think we should support the farmers in Africa. And I, I think I think permaculture is the answer. I think tapping into traditional farming practices and heirloom seeds and traditional foods is the answer no matter what part of the world you're at. Okay. So I'm hoping you enjoyed this video. I'm gonna do a lot more um, videos like this where we get into topics and we cover some news articles here and there, and Most of it's going to be around the drought, but I do want to talk about some agricultural based news and just kind of have that be a part of the channel, have this kind of be a resource and just kind of bring up topics that you might not have heard of. And this is from The Hill. This is corporate news. So this is not like independent news media or anything like that. This is a corporate news resource. So take everything I read with a grain of salt. And I'll always show my sources and where I'm getting these articles. And we went through the whole article. I didn't skip anything. I don't feel like I'm misrepresenting anything. I'm just giving you my opinion on what I read and my thoughts on it and how it relates to Arizona and the things I've been bringing up in regards to food forest and conserving water and whatnot. All right, so thank you, and I'll see you in the next one.